keys in hand. All right, we are live. Hello, folks. Les here from Sixus1. Les L Garner, as I sign all my stuff, LL Garner, with my buddy Brent, Mr. Brent Bowers from AKA Disciple 3D, engraver and the 3D stuff, and it's another of our lovely Sixus1 Magazine podcasts. So here we are on what is for me a snowy Tuesday morning. It is Tuesday, isn't it? It is Tuesday. Snowy Tuesday morning here in eastern Kentucky, and I'm loving it. We got about 1.5 inches of snow last night. A little bit early for us to get snow, and I'm so happy because I love that business. I was out in it this morning with the dogs, posted some video to Facebook, and it just makes me happy. I love it. So, what's up in? I think Brent, you're in North Carolina.
Yes, I am.
I always want to say South Carolina, but I have to correct myself because I know it's not.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get butt hurt if you refer to us as the Carolinas, but yeah, technically I actually am in North Carolina, and it's raining like cats and dogs this morning. We're about to have a cold snap at the end of the day, I'm told.
Yeah, I'd say the snow that hit us probably hitting your way.
No doubts.
Probably. So, if y'all can see, why is this? Let's see, I'm going to double check. Looks like we should be live right now, although I'm not.
We are.
Okay. Is it, I'm going to double check over on the machine where I monitor this, make sure that's actually coming through. Having some little hiccups this morning. Yeah, it looks like, okay, yeah, it looks like we have a live one. If you're on our channel and you look, you're going to see a copy of this that says live in 2 hours, and that is a mistake. Something got wonky on the YouTube Studio side of things, and so I'll be fixing that once we close out on this one. But yeah, YouTube does some weird stuff sometimes with streaming. So anyway, yeah, I can see that we're live. So what you see on the screen right now, if you watched the last of these, I'm going to zoom in just so it fills up the screen a bit. Come on. Of course, it's probably going to get laggy because Manga Studio doesn't like it when I'm streaming. It's always so disorienting that have the latency between the stream going out, and I can see it monitoring. Yeah, it's like a few seconds behind over on this other machine. So to my right, there's a screen that shows what I just did, and it's very disorienting sometimes. What you see on the screen, if you watch the last shoe, this is the painting that I was working on for the cover of Apocalypse Girl #5. Feels so good to say number 5. That's like one away from the end. And so production is underway on the 5th issue of Apocalypse Girl, finally. And I'm just really, really happy with this painting. If you were to do a screenshot and compare this to what you saw of this painting on the last one, you'd see that there are some massive changes. I reworked a lot about Anna, our lead character there, and I really put a lot of time into this painting, more than I normally like to, but ended up creating a whole pile of new brushes in Manga Studio just for getting the spattery watercolor sort of effect of the, that kind of stylized spray going up off the bottom, which I really like. Of course, if you look at, here in Manga Studio, you can see these boundaries that are they're live image boundaries. It's basically showing like anything you want to be 100% sure is going to show up on a final printed comic has to be inside these bounds, because the way the printing process works, you have bleed and trim and all that kind of stuff. So there's actually a fair amount of this on the edges that I know will end up going away. I always like to paint all the way to the edge, even though I know I don't have to, just cause. But so yeah, there is the cover of #5. Let's see, news in the world of Apocalypse Girl. Yesterday, the November catalog from Diamond Distributors. And if you know comics, you hear me talk about comics, you know the primary source that most of the shops use. Like pretty much if you're a professional comic shop, you are working with Diamond Distributors. They have a monopoly on things. It is what it is, and that's the world we live in. So this is actually the first book that I've worked on in many years that's actually coming out through Diamond Distribution, and I'm very happy about that. I have my feelings about Diamond. I don't like the monopoly they have on the market. I just don't, for lots of reasons, and I kind of lived through the era when that monopoly happened. But like I actually saw the process of it reaching that state firsthand, and it really is. It was a very strange thing, but it is what it is. And so, yeah, this is the first book that I've had coming out through like really normal traditional comic book channels in, geez, a long time, about 20 years. So I'm excited about that because that means Apocalypse Girl does now have a much stronger chance of being out there to perform on the shelves next to all the major players and all that sort of thing. And the publisher who I'm with, who I always like to give a shout out to, Source Point Press, is just such an excellent up and coming, kind of, I consider them sort of an upper mid-range publisher. They're not, I don't know. Actually, I have no idea what their, how they compare to like Valiant or, trying to think, maybe like Avatar or some of the other ones at that range. I think if I had to guess, I think they're really climbing fast. They got some really great awards given to them in the past year. They were Travis McIntyre, the publisher behind Source Point, received it was like the Independent Publishers Award, the Gary Reed Award, which is a really big deal in independent comics. And then I want to say they had a couple of Eisner nominated books. So I'm very, like super proud to have been invited to be a part of a crew that has, that's making the kind of waves that they're making. So that's really cool. And for Apocalypse Girl to be coming out through those guys it really makes me happy. Of course, they had, I think I mention this thing all the time because it's just super cool. They had the horror comedy called Rotten Tales, a comic that they put out and then made a movie, like a legit film of it and all that kind of stuff. So it's I'm very excited at being with these guys. They do, I think Travis said that they do upwards of 60 conventions a year promoting their stuff. And so you can do the math. There's 52 weeks in a year. So there's like multiple weeks out of the year that they actually have convention crews out at like in different cities at the same time. Just that alone is a really amazing thing to watch and be a part of. And so Apocalypse Girl #1 is available if you're a comic book fan, and you a lot of fans are buying online these days. You can go to SourcePoint. I think it's sourcepointpress.com, or just Google SourcePoint Press. It'll take you right to them. I know you can go to them, and I think maybe there's like pre-orders and things you can do. I'm not sure what they've got up there just yet. Or you can go to your local comic shop and say, hey, buddy, I know this is in the new previews. Put it in my pull list. Order this thing. And I really hope that folks, who are, the whole friends, family, Sixus1 supporters, folks who've kind of been with me for the ride that my career's taken through the last number of years. I hope you guys, if you have a local comic shop you visit, go tell them to put this in your pull. If you don't, find one and go tell them to put it in your pull. So the more of those orders that we get up front through Diamond, the better, for so many reasons, other than just the actual sales. So, but #1 is available through Diamond. You can order that now. It officially releases in January. So, and also just a little advance notice for any of our friends who are in and around the New Orleans area. There's, I think it's a Wizard World convention, although I could be wrong. It could be with another convention company. But there is a good sized comic book show going on in New Orleans in January. It's, I think, January 3rd through 5th. And Source Point will be there. And I will be there as their guest, helping, you know, talking them up because I love them. They're great. And obviously, you know, promoting Apocalypse Girl. That will be a couple of weeks before #1 comes out. So if you're going to be at the New Orleans show, then come on out and we will have special New Orleans Comic Con exclusive Apocalypse Girl #1 copies there that will have a different cover on them that'll be exclusive to that show. It's the only place you'll be able to get those. And I'd love to see some folks come out and get those and, you know, all that sort of thing. But, you know, that's in January. So just kind of advance promoting that now because it's going to be a blast. So that's like my first official convention with Source Point promoting this book. So, and the other cool thing, as folks who follow comics know, you know, it's like very often you get into a series or whatever, and then you get at some point and they're like, oh, we're pushing back the release on this or pushing back the release on that because whatever happened, the creative team didn't get it done. This will be entirely done and delivered to Source Point and ready to roll before issue #1 hits the stands. So when you tell your LCS, your local comic shop, to you know, that you're gonna have them order and place Apocalypse Girl in your pull file, you do not have to worry about that whole disappointing thing that happens where it's like, oh yeah, I got this, you know, I like this first issue, and oh wait, where's #2? And then it never comes out, or it takes it months and months, and there's all this lag and all that kind of stuff. The major publishers are actually notorious for that these days, and it drives me nuts. I'm like, you guys have all the bankroll, you have all the money, you have all the control of the stinking industry. There's no excuse for you guys to operate this way. And since that's my attitude about it, I am not going to operate that way, and neither is Source Point. All the stuff is in the can before it hits, and you guys will not have to be disappointed if you get into it and dig it. So that's my opening spiel for this week. Just, you know, updates and all that on Apocalypse Girl. So the actual pages, you know, like page to page production on #5 is rolling, and I got a good groove going with it, and I can't wait to get that done. And yeah, it's awesome, dude. It's awesome. Like issue #6 completes the first story. It's gonna be so cool to have that done and be able to take a breather from it, and then, you know, plot the next big thing for Apocalypse Girl after that, which I already have the story plotted over 18 issues. It's 3 6-issue stories. So when I get the first one done, I can take a breather, and then I get to dive into what I know is coming, which I've been looking forward to for a long time. So that's the Apocalypse Girl update. So now, let's see. I actually put notes in the video thing this week on what all we were going to cover, so I'm just going to look at those and see what to move on to next.
Well, the painting turned out great.
Well, thank you. I'm very, very pleased with it, and you can see here, like, this is layers that I like. In the end, I pull a copy of all the visible layers into one comp. You know, it's all collapsed together as one. But
yeah,
you know, it's like
I would be a madman about saving that stuff, and of course, I'm sure your file sizes get huge.
Oh, they're ridiculous. Yeah. Here you can see where I went through and like painted certain elements on different layers just to keep them separate. And if I scroll down through this and turn these off, you can really see some of the development of this too. I think, yeah, that's where I started drawing in. There's 2 different sketches I did of how I wanted her ghosted in the background or kind of imposed over the back. And I kind of ended up going with a combination of the two. Like this one, the face didn't quite work for me as I ended up painting on it. And so I ended up redrawing the face and just kind of worked with the body from one and the face from the other. And then here was the very original of her, but it ended up like that pose and everything, and that's that quick sketch on there. It felt like they were almost looked like allies, and I was like, no, can't do that. That is incorrect.
Man, that style right there, like I actually like a lot of comic books that just have that. I mean, have you ever done that?
Well, that's what the internal stuff all is. Yeah, that's what the inside of Apocalypse Girl looks like. This is the style.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, no, I just do I do paintings for the covers, and then the interior is all good old fashioned. It's like it's good old fashioned black and white pen and ink line art.
But
and
it is colored.
And then
right?
it gets colored. Yeah, it does. It gets colored after that.
Right, but have you ever like done this as the finished product? I mean, I've seen books that do that.
I actually originally envisioned Apocalypse Girl as a black and white comic. That's what I wanted from the get go. And it's actually I've worked with 3 different publishers now on it before finding its permanent home with SourcePoint, and every single publisher, every single one begged. They're like, we really prefer this to be colored. So I bit the bullet and went color with it. And a part of me, like, I have this kind of goofy hope that it does. Well, I mean, obviously it's not goofy hope that it does really well, but I hope that it is extremely successful, and successful enough that someday I kind of come back and go, like, kind of like DC does this thing sometimes where they'll release comics. It's funny, they call them director's cuts, but there's not really directors in comics like in movies, but whatever, they like using the lingo. But like if I were to release a quote unquote director's cut of Apocalypse Girl, it would be black and white.
You'd have all those PSD files. You could just go back and turn the color off.
Well, they're not PSDs; they're actually Manga Studio. But
yeah, I got you.
But yeah,
I always think in terms of Adobe, but yeah.
Yeah. No, that like the way that I set these up, even there's like right here is a folder with the original drawing of this in it, and even there, like the hatching back here, I did on a separate layer from that. And what I'll do in coloring this stuff is like I would have a folder labeled ink. So once all the art is done, or I say all the art, that's not to slight the colors, but for me, it's like the primary art is the drawing. So once all the drawing and inking are done, I'll have all of that combined, or I'll have all the layers for that stuff pulled into a folder, and then that folder will be labeled ink, and then that folder gets set to a multiply blend mode, and then below it I'll have a folder that I'll be putting new layers into that will all be color, because if the folder with all the black and white line art is set to multiply, then you can paint colors in the stuff below it and it shows right through. So that's the way, like if I were to do that here, I'd set I can change this temporarily to white, which is what the stuff would be on normal pages, and then we'd set like this right here to multiply, and you don't see any change against white. But then if I add a color layer here, and you just grab a pencil, and let's say we take a tone right here, well then I can paint just right on in there. And then one of the things I love in Manga Studio, there's a process in comic book production in colors called flatting. And in Manga Studio, say this is a great example because there's multiple layers inside the folder here. So like this would be my inks folder, and I would turn on this little icon right here, this little lighthouse. And what that's going to do is when I grab a paint bucket in here, and this is one of the things that's unique to Manga Studio versus Photoshop, is so I can go back to my coloring layer here. I've got a color selected, I got a paint bucket. Well, now if I have this turned on, when I drop paint in, it will drop it inside, kind of like using the magic wand, it'll drop it inside based on the referenced layer. So like if I go there, boom, it drops it right in that.
So I guess you have this software via the physical CD, right? Because like, haven't they changed the name to Clip Paint if it's the digital version or something like that?
They changed the name shortly after I got this version. I was actually given this version by Smith Micro back when I used to do a lot of contract work for them.
I
And
am 90% sure that I got given this at some point too when I was on the beta team, but I swear I can't find it, which is a real bummer because I'm getting interested in it again.
oh, it's incredible. I mean, it had been a couple of years since I had done any actual comic book pages when I got Manga Studio, and I kind of sat there with it for a little bit. Like they gave me a copy of it because they're like, oh, you're a comic book guy, right? And I was like, yeah, I work in comics sometimes, and that's where I started. They're like, well, here, you should try this. We'd like to see what you think of it.
Oh, 129 bucks, that's pretty cheap.
Yeah. Oh no, the cost on it, like now that I don't think I don't know if Smith Micro does Manga Studio anymore or not. I don't know if
They
Renderosa
do. They still own it.
they still own it. Good. That's a good thing. I'm glad for that. It's like right now I'm using a pen tool instead of a pencil or a brush, just because it drops perfectly flat color instead of having any tonal stuff to it. And that's like, I'll flat things by using the bucket to drop color in, and I'll use a pen to go in and finish out the flat for the area. Um, but I was saying something and I thought, I shifted gears for a second because that's kind of an interesting process thing. Um, but yeah, I got it, and Manga Studio is actually what inspired me to really get serious about coming back into full-fledged comic production. Because at the time, like, I mean, I was up to my eyeballs in 3D, which I've been forever and a damn day, but and I was doing 3D stuff for comic book companies. And I was doing 3D stuff that comic book companies would sometimes use for for any number of things. Like, I was doing a lot of work at the time with Brian Haberlin on his Anomaly stuff, and there's a lot of things that that I got to that I've been really fortunate because of being in 3D. I've been really fortunate to kind of get into a number of situations. I guess I don't know, just some really cool projects and stuff like that. Um, and then Smith Micro gave me a copy of Manga Studio, which at the time I was also beta team for Poser and other stuff with them back then, and did consulting for them and all kinds of junk. And they gave me Manga Studio, and I was like, all right, I'll check this out. And then one day, I guess I was just bored, and I fired it up and started playing around with it, and I was like, huh, this is pretty neat. And actually, the thing that really hooked me on it was the paneling system. And to me, just the thought of something having a paneling system sounded weird, but like the way that I'll break up a page is, let me change this back to black. And so, like, if I hit U, it gets all my rulers and special tools. And there's a whole section in there called frame. I really wish they'd have called that panel, because frame is kind of not a comic book term, but whatever. And so, like say right here is my maximum live area. So if I drag out through that, actually that's my trim area, and this is my maximum bleed. So this is really where it needs to go, somewhere right about there. So okay, when I drag that out, what it does is it creates this special folder that's a panel folder, and then everything outside that gets masked. So if I come inside here now and I click on this empty layer that it makes, and I grab a let's set that to color. I because of my habits with drawing comics traditionally, I like to do this what emulates non-repro blue drawing. And so, like, if I come in here and draw now, it's locked inside that layer. Like, it's drawing out past there. If I turn off the masking, it's drawing on past there. But whenever you draw a panel layer out there, it automatically creates that. Now, here's what's neat though, okay, so that's not that big of a deal, but it puts a background in there, a white background, and then here's your, the thing here for the layer where you can draw on it, so blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, if I go back and click on this layer, and it gives you context-sensitive tools up here, so you don't have to know where the tools are in the stinking program. You click on a layer, any tool that can operate on that layer will appear right here. And so if I click on this is the divide frame tool. And if I click and drag on here now, if I hold shift, it'll snap it. So watch what it does. Okay, Facebook needs to die. That noise coming through, I just hate that. So there, I click and drag on it, and it splits that into exactly the same sort of thing. So then we can, if you wanted to do an odd shape, you just drag in a different, area. But you see how it's always the same width.
I'm starting to think it might make sense for me to get this instead of doing, that method we talked about with Poser in Photoshop. I mean, I feel like I know Photoshop inside and out, but this seems like, especially stuff like that right there, being able to make your, I use smart layers in Photoshop, and of course you're limited to the shape of those. You can make them odd shapes, but you kind of have to sort of do it in a very awkward way.
Well, and then there's also, so like if we do, let's see, shape of division, I think, let's see, and then, come on, do I need to keep drawing it down? There it goes, there it goes. So you can, do that with kind of a point and click fence tool. I want to say, I think this one right here will do a smooth spline. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, but it keeps that exact width. It's great.
I mean, I could do that. I could do that in Photoshop, but it's a lot faster having that tool for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you can adjust the gap between things. It's like you can do all that kind of stuff.
Are there any tools for your speech bubbles and things of that nature?
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. Like whenever I go to do my lettering, the way that I'll do my lettering. So if I hit T, and here you can see I've got presets made that I use for Apocalypse Girl stuff. So like when I want to do lettering, I do my lettering in its own folder. And I put it on top of everything else so that I don't have a layer for every single word balloon. And here's how I like to do it. So I'll grab the, let's grab the ellipse balloon. And I'm just going to drag that balloon right there, and once I drag it, it'll always try to put it inside a panel. But once I drag that out here, okay, then I can move this around like that. And if I hit the text tool here, I have a setting set up using WebLetter BB for Apocalypse Girl dialogue, and then I click inside the balloon, and so let's just put a bunch of text inside here for the sake of demonstration. Now it doesn't, this is a deficiency in the program, is that it doesn't have like really good Illustrator level
smart breaking and stuff like that.
Yeah, but the thing that I have found is that when you do the breaks and stuff yourself manually, it ends up coming out feeling a lot more like traditional comic book lettering anyway.
That the Comic Life, which in general is very easy to use, great usability, that they have that same issue.
Now here's where I've never used Comic Life, so I don't know, but here's something kind of neat. So once this is there, the text will follow the bubble, and we can move the bubble around. Then if we wanted to make changes to the bubble, add some irregularities and stuff to it, we could come in here and edit the spline for the bubble, just like any kind of vector editing. But then say you wanted to now point that bubble to a character, you grab the tail tool, boom.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, now here's...
What if you want to bend that tail tool? I mean,
Um,
does a tool do that?
well, you could grab this guy right here, and you could bend it like that,
Oh man, yeah.
or um, you could. So if we delete that, when you're creating it, say I've got a character over here, and I want to have the tail kind of weave through stuff. If I start clicking here, boom, boom, boom. So that's incredibly useful. And then there's other tails that you can bring up too. There's oh crap, I think there was one that does like thought bubble type stuff. Um, this is kind of neat. Like you can also change styles on this stuff. So I believe if I click here, I could be wrong on this, but let's see. It's gonna go here and grab this, and then versions like little. No, I got to do that differently. Let's go in here, grab scrub balloon. Okay, so now that is going to have a rough edge around that balloon, and that's like that's my own tool. What I did is I've got a brush that I can use that lays down in like a scrubby ink thing like that. It's a very kind of 90s thing, 90s comic thing, which I love 90s comics. To have like rough balloons or rough edged panels for something really violent going on or whatever. And any brush that you have in the program, you could tell it to use that as the line around a balloon instead of just a straight line. Now here's something else. Since we got this out in here, it created a new balloon for that, didn't it? So if we go into our text balloon here, say we wanted to add a secondary bubble. So sometimes you're looking at a comic and you read and there'll be text in one bubble and it'll have like a small bubble attached to it, right? So if I grab my ellipse balloon tool right here where it says add to selected layer, watch this. Boom. So
Man, cool.
yeah, it merges them together. And then if I click in that second balloon, we can add more text here, and then I'll center justify it, and boom, there you go. You've got just super perfect freaking lettering going on there.
What version is that you're using?
This is, it was called Manga Studio EX. It was the last one. It's the same as Clip Studio Paint. I think I'm one version behind because they've done an update since then, but I remember the update. I don't remember the update had anything in it that I felt like I needed, so I didn't bother. But this is the last version of Manga Studio before they changed the name. So everything I'm showing here is in Clip Studio Paint exactly as I'm showing it here. Like, I think they gave me this while they were in the process of changing the name. But
they still sell that version on Amazon, it looks like.
That doesn't surprise me.
For $49, bro.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's got to be worth $49.
Oh, dude. All day long and then some. Now, this is Manga Studio EX. The other big thing I don't like about it is the story mode. So, like, when I start a new comic, I know what the page count's going to be. And so I start a story. And the story gives me, like I'll say, okay, it's a 24-page story. I've got 24 pages plus cover and the inside of the cover for credits. So that means I've got 26 pages. And it will put them in this 2-up layout, which is exactly right, because when you print, if you anybody who's going to try to draw comics at all for a living or just because you want to do a book needs to understand, like, one of the first things you learn very quickly, I learned at like 19, it was like, oh, wait a minute, think about it. You open the cover, the first page of story is page 1, and it can't have a 2-page spread. So then you turn page 1, and pages 2 and 3, those can run together because they print all the way across, Then 4, 5, 6, 7. So you got even to odd is how 2-page spreads run. And like, you can combine, like in here, you can tell it to combine 2 pages into a 2-page spread so it becomes one sheet of art. It's so cool. Then once you've got a book put together, sometimes,
sorry,
like I in writing a comic, I use what I call the 3-beat rule. is that I've got 26 pages. 26 pages is enough space for about 3 story beats, which could be like I'll have basically 3 plots going on. There'll be like the main plot and 2 subplots, which may or may not figure, directly into the main plot at the current moment. And I'll divide it up. I'll say, okay, I've got 26 pages or 24 pages. So 24 divided by 3 is 8. I've got 8 pages of plot that I can share for each of these plots. And then I'll juggle the numbers and go, well, this is the main plot, so let's give that one 10 pages. So then that leaves me 14 pages. Okay, so if I give one 10 pages, then the other 2 have 7 each. So then I'll prioritize the next 2 plots and say, okay, now this one is going to get 8 pages, and this one's going to get 6. So it'll be like 10, 8, 6. So then I know how many pages each plot gets. And then I'll tend to kind of write, the way I'll write is I'll do thumbnails. I'll say, okay, I've got 8 pages. These are all the things that I want to convey about that plot in 8 pages. I've got 10 pages. This is 10. I've got 8, and I've got 6. And I'll thumbnail those out like that. And then from there, a lot of times I'll just go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to do this 8-page story. Then I'm going to do this 6-page, this 10-page. And I'll have them all in there. And once they're done, then I can say, okay, now, at what point in this section should I cut away and give the reader a break and bring this other stuff in? And then in here, it becomes like cutting video, because you can drag and drop your pages and reorder it. And so then you're able to control the pacing in such a fluid, beautiful way. And it reorders the pages, changes the numbers, changes all, like everything is set. You don't have to worry about file names and all that kind of stuff. Like if you're trying to do it in Photoshop, you're going to have multiple pages. And you could set up an InDesign document, like for some kind of a book or magazine or something. You could set up an InDesign document and kind of sort of do something similar. But with Manga Studio, Clip Studio Paint, it's actually designed specifically for the way you would go about doing that in comics. And it just, God, it just takes so much stupid annoyance out of editing a comic and putting it all together. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Like, to me, the idea of, once I got this tool and I started working with this, I was like, I will never go back to, 100% old-fashioned comic production again. Sometimes I still, like the first page of issue number 5, all the art, all of the drawing, the pencils and inks have all been done traditional. If my webcam wasn't a piece of junk, I would swing around and show you my drafting board, because the page is actually sitting there right now, all finished. And I do that sometimes just as a sort of reminder. Sometimes you got to kind of remind yourself what you come from. And you have to, I feel like I need that every once in a while to do a page completely traditional, so that I know that I'm not using technology as a crutch. Like it's just for me, really. That, and sometimes folks like to, sometimes it's kind of cool to be able to have like an original hand-drawn page. Well, I mean, it's all hand-drawn, but through a Cintiq. It's nice sometimes to have the original, traditionally created artwork there in this tangible way, so I can sell it. I'd be like, hey, this is the traditional page, or a traditionally created page from this comic. Collectors, are you interested? And I'll offer that for sale sometimes. Actually, any traditionally created pages that I do are available to anybody who wants to collect them. So, but yeah, Manga Studio is
$49. The price is right. I'd be willing to take the risk that I wouldn't learn that new usability. Of course, in my case, I can always pester you, but yeah, it looks like if you're a Photoshop user, it's not like reinventing the wheel or anything.
Oh no, it is incredible. I mean, really, it's such a game changer. Yeah. It really does. Like, I cannot stress enough. And there's times too, and it's not like you have to abandon Photoshop either. Like, there's plenty of times where, say, I'm doing a painting, because one of the other things, like, I adore the paint tools in this program. Just adore them. And I've talked about that kind of to a great degree on here. The paint tools and the way those work and all that. But let me reset all this back to where it needs to be. But even so, sometimes, especially like the latest version of Photoshop, has some killer natural media tools. I actually think Manga Studio may be why Photoshop now has these great natural media tools, because Photoshop, by my reckoning, years ago, Adobe dropped the. They didn't just drop the ball. They found a really big toilet and just put the ball in the toilet and flushed it like a giant turd. They completely dropped the ball on natural media paint tools. And for a time there was like, and it's still a good app, was Corel bought Painter. And Painter is a really good natural media program. But it's also really complicated. Way overcomplicated in my opinion. Whereas Manga Studio came along and they're like, okay, we're going to do this thing called the Ink Engine, which, first and foremost, it emulates, like, I have a whole batch of pens that I've saved in here that straight up, like, I can go, okay, I want a number 5 Winsor Newton brush with the old thick Winsor Newton super shiny black India ink that I love from the late 80s, early 90s, and I love the way that stuff feels going onto paper. And I have a brush that I've made here that under my Cintiq feels like I'm using that. The way it responds to my hand feels just like that. If I want my Hunts number 5 mapping tip on a crow quill, boom, I've got one I've made for that. If I want a rapidograph pen, I've got a pen that feels to my hand just like using one of those. The ability to customize the tools in here is ridiculous. It's so much deeper than Photoshop in the way that it responds to your hands if you draw. But so that was great initially, but then you get into it and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this whole ink engine isn't just ink. It's pencils and brushes and all this other stuff. And really what they built is a natural media system that is unlike any other program, and I just adore it. So
I wonder what the big upgrade is in Clip Studio over and beyond this. The only thing I can see is that, like, they don't have this version on their website anymore. I did download a demo, but I don't know if it'll work. I haven't tried it yet. I'm curious. It's not that much more for the latest version, so I'm really curious.
I think they tried to incorporate more 3D into it, because there are 3D tools.
Yeah, I do see that mentioned on
Like,
the tutorials channel.
like I'm gonna close this page out since I don't need to resave it or anything. Thank God. Give that a second. It is now any version of Manga Studio is a memory hog. It will eat it up. But I'm just going to open one of these blank pages here, and so I've got just a clean slate to mess around with. But like,
Oh, it's the iPad version is subscription based.
yeah, and I'm not an iPad user, so I don't really think
that.
About. Yeah. I do wish they had better text manipulation, because doing things like sound effects and stuff, you can do them in here, but you don't have the fine level of text manipulation. So what I will often do is, like if I've got a crack or a pow or something that I want to be on a page, I'll have Illustrator open and I'll use its text tools to get the stylized stuff put into place, and then I'll copy that and paste it over in here. And I'm actually amassing a little library of stuff like this right here. I made this sound effect at one point coming out of Illustrator. I drop it in here, and you've got these little things like, see how it's got the red line around it. If we come in here, we could change the stroke color, and you can do all kinds of stuff here. And most of it I think is pretty self-explanatory. But to get like the letters to blend together like that, and there's a number of things like that it's a little deficient when it comes to that. But I do like, though, that it has this thing called the material catalog or material library, and there's lots of things that I use on a regular basis that that if I that like I can drag and drop them into this library, and then they're just there. So like a color palette that I'll use for coloring my pages. That needs to be set to color. There we go. And so like, I made notes here like dark hair, dark cloth, metals, apocalypse girl cloth. And so when I go to color, a lot of times I'll just come in here and like with the pen, I'll have like my pencil up, and I'll hold the Alt key and tap on one of these colors, and then it gives me that color. And so then I can just drop those colors in where I need them and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I've also got palettes saved down here for certain things, but it's not quite like, there's something about having it out there where I just alt click it that just feels for me like reaching over with a brush and grabbing it for real.
Hey, can you go under help and about on that at your top menu?
Yeah. This is version 5.0.4.
Okay, yes, version 4 on Amazon for sale.
Yeah, like the thing I was talking about some 3D stuff in here, like they have these bodies that you can drop out in here, and then they have some like 3D anime characters and stuff. You can actually bring FBX files into Manga Studio, and if it's a rigged FBX, you can pose it, and there's some stuff you can do with it. Let's see. There's so like these 3D drawing dolls can be kind of handy. It's like having, like if you like, I know some artists actually do this. They'll have a mannequin sitting on their desk, and they'll pose the mannequin. Like if they're having trouble working out how to draw a pose, they'll pose that mannequin, then take their phone, snap it, toss it into Manga Studio or whatever they're using, or they'll print it and throw it on a light box, and they'll use that as a guide if they're in a hurry and they just don't feel like screwing with it anymore. So like if I drag this 3D drawing doll out here, you get this guy, and then you can drag around it, and it's nice that it has this grid drawn on it, because it really, there's a lot that can help you do. But then like this is some very like poser / DAS Studio kinds of stuff, even in that these are rigged FBXs, and you can manipulate the stuff around, and then they have poses just like in Poser and DAS Studio. So you can like apply a pose. I said apply a pose. I think you have to drag and drop it. I hardly ever use this aspect of the program, which is why it's a little wonky for me. But like here we've got a good old 3D gimbal manipulator. And I think if I select an element there that I can, I'm pretty sure there's a way to restore that element. But I don't, I really don't use this aspect of the program very much at all. But like, if I were to, the way I would use it is, like get a pose in here, and then let's just move this around a little bit. I might get a pose in there, and then I'd maybe drop the opacity down or something, and then I'd come to a layer above it and set it up the way I would to draw, and then I could kind of follow those guidelines. And there's certain times that having a mannequin around is really handy, like trying to work out an upshot at a chin can be really, really annoying. It's one of the hardest things to draw. And so you might come through and do something like that, and then I would follow this stuff through. So there's tools in here that are meant to be an assist. And if you look at like this is a Japanese program originally, and if you look at a lot of manga, which I say manga because even though I'm a bit of a Japanophile, I'm still damn American, and I'll say manga because I just do. But you can see, like, once you dig into this and mess around with it, if you look at any manga, you can see a lot of manga out there really uses it for production. Because manga production works a little differently than comics in the U.S. Man, they are production workhorses. They really are hitting it and getting it all the time with the amount of stuff that they put out. So yeah, they'll use stuff like this as a production tool and just belt it. And you can see right there how, like, if you're someone who you might have some drawing skill, but you do have some trouble with proportions or angles and things like that sometimes. There's no shame in using something, I guess, to kind of help flesh that stuff out. So I had the finger back on there just because. It can be really useful to help you sort of work out your forms and structure and all that. Yeah, there's a character in Apocalypse Girl that I'm drawing who wears BDUs, and so I have those big pockets on there all the time. I've been drawing the pockets a lot lately, so it's kind of a habit. Being able to look at something like that is really handy. I'll give it that. Let's. Yeah. But yeah, so there you have, using that mannequin as a guide. And like I said, there's lots of folks out there who are using desktop mannequins and snapping photos of them and dropping that in to wherever they're working on their stuff and using that as a jump start just to save time. And to me, we talk about the subject sometimes of using 3D in comics. To me, that's actually a really good way to use 3D in comics, is to use it to get yourself some references and things like that, but then actually just draw over it. And like, there are some really big name comic artists out there who use SketchUp all the stinking time now to do backgrounds. They'll build a background up in there, but they'll still go and draw over it. They're just using it the way we would back in the day, to light box a photo and then trace over that. So those are like light boxes. I used to use a light box all the time for stuff. There's no shame in that. So this is similar to that. It's a similar sort of thing, and it's one of a bazillion little tools that Manga Studio has in it that's like, wow, dude, that's great. Now, something else. This is something I've played with. Let's see. I think this is in my Apocalypse Girl folder, but it shouldn't be. Is you can bring rigged models in. So like, there's this model I have of a Harley, and I did this just to play around with it, just to see what I'd get. God, this has been years ago that I played with this. It'll probably take a minute to load too. Like the 3D engine in Manga Studio is honestly really clunky. Like I can't. There it goes. There it goes. So once that loads in, they really could stand to upgrade this the 3D side of it, but like I'm not sure. Yeah, that doesn't move with constraints or whatever. Although I don't think I really put a lot of work into rigging. It was just like, let's throw this together and see what it'll do. But yeah, they're like it's pulling textures and stuff in. And if you really wanted, you could turn on this monochrome over it, which I believe is probably the basis of where Poser ended up getting its cartoon engine. It's very similar. But you know, and that to me is not a good comic drawing right there. But I'm getting Skypes from my son while I'm on here. I think he, I wish there was a way that I could do that. I like isolate so I can't receive those messages. I think I should turn my notifications off or something. Let's do invisible, see if that stops it. Anyway, so yeah, you can do that kind of stuff. And again, the way I would use it, I really wouldn't bother with this. I would leave it kind of like that, and then maybe set it to that hazy blue, and then take it down, and then from there, like you know, I'll take my pen. And I mean, I'd go much smoother and I'd be far more careful than this, but you know, you've got it there as a reference. So you can really work your way around with that. And again, it's kind of like it's like having photos that you're going to lightbox, but instead of just a photo, it's a photo that you can move around. You know, that's how I see it. That's really, that is the times when I do use a little bit of 3D in my comic work. That's how I'll use it. I'll use it as setting up a reference, you know, and giving me something I can kind of go over like that. So obviously that's a super dirty ink job right there. I'd be far more meticulous with it and building it all out. And then too, like if I use models for anything, I tend to want them stylized. I will customize them. You know, it's like usually it's going to be customized because I'm going to build it myself first because I make my own shit. You know? But even then, like if I use a model that I've released to the public through Daz or through Rendo, then when I use it, I'm still going to use an altered copy of it. Like I'm going to add things to it for myself that I don't release to the public if I think I'm going to use it in a comic as a reference, because I don't want somebody else to be able to use exactly the same thing I use, because I want my artwork to be my artwork and not, you know, I want to veer as far from the homogeneity of it as possible. So, you know, and that's artistically speaking, that's always my problem with 3D in comics, is it's so easy for it to end up having a lot of sameness from other people using 3D for that. So that's why it's like, if you're going to do it, alter it, stylize it, work with it, and make it something unique. And you know, like I said, you know, I might drop a model in and trace over it, use it as reference like that, the way I would in a light box. But even then, I'm still going to stylize it, and by the time I'm done, you know, it's like I've challenged people before. They're like, "Oh, are you using 3D for your comics?" I'm like, occasionally. I dare you to show me where it's at, though, because usually they're wrong. Usually, when people want to look at my pages and guess what was 3D and what wasn't, or what used a 3D reference and what wasn't, they can't tell the difference, and it's because of the way that I go about doing it. And I think that's important, because it keeps the artwork all cohesive, and it keeps the artwork feeling like something that came out of my hands. And to me, that's part of the charm of comics. is that the comic comes from your hands, and that's just me being artsy about it. But I do feel like there's some importance to that. So anyway, yeah, Manga Studio, you've got these crazy tools that you can use to do that sort of thing with, and it does. Like we've talked before about tools to allow people who aren't necessarily highly skilled artists to still be able to do some kind of art and things like that. I feel like Manga Studio is actually in some ways a better vehicle for that than some of the 3D programs, because it doesn't do with the 3D programs. There can be this sense that, oh, it's going to do this for me. Sometimes people treat it as though it's doing stuff for them, whereas Manga Studio is more like a lot of tools to help you help yourself, and they're the same tools that a professional like me can use to speed up their production, but they also relate to the hobbyist or the novice and give them ways to kind of grow. And I dig that. I think that's cool. Manga Studio is probably my favorite program that's been released in the past 20 years.
There are a lot of flavors on this. If you look on Amazon trying to buy this, I think maybe the version you have and the one before it, which I did find one of each available, but I don't think maybe they're not supported anymore. And then it gets into like the EX versus like the Paint Pro, Clip Studio Paint Pro versus Clip Studio Paint EX. Big difference in price, so I'm not clear on what is included.
I'm if I'm not mistaken, I don't know what the pricing structure is like these days, but back when I got this version, the biggest difference between Pro and the regular, back then there was only two tiers, and the biggest difference was the regular tier. You worked in single files and you didn't have the story mode.
We may have to look at that offline. I definitely want to play with it, especially if I can get it for $60.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Because you know what I would draw, Les? You know what I would draw if I had this? You know what I would draw?
Boobs.
I would draw a ninja. With
the master of the segue. Master of the segue. You're like a mall cop. You're like a mall cop riding his segue.
And we're not talking about one of those things that bounces the fat mall cop.
Right into the sunset, man. You're like a jousting ninja on a Segway. I want to draw that now. I want to draw a cartoon of like you in a ninja outfit on a Segway holding a joust.
Hey, speaking of jousting, I caught the very last 2 jousting passes at the Carolina Renaissance Festival on Sunday.
Dude, are those not cool as hell?
That stuff is not fake. That's like calling wrestling fake when they throw a guy like off of the top of the cage.
Yeah.
You know, well, fake in the sense that one guy let the other guy throw him, but not fake in the sense of the impact. This first pass was like a dud. They just kind of glanced off. The second pass knocked dude's shoulder piece off and dented like the upper part of his armor, and the armor, by the way, was amazing. The horses had armor, the dudes had armor, and it was all super shiny, like it was brand new. It was really something else. But man, the crowd was insane. I didn't get there in time. I wish I got closer.
It's a blast, man. I haven't been to a Ren Fest in a number of years, but I remember the last one I went to was up. They call it the Cincinnati Ren Fest, but like so many things in Cincinnati, it's held over in northern Kentucky for a variety of reasons, because Kentucky freaking rocks. Yeah, Kentucky rocks, because anything you want to do in Cincinnati that's fun, you're going to come across the river to our side to do it. But I love that so much. I love hazing Cincinnati. But yeah, the Ren Fest. Last time I was at a Ren Fest, the jousting was just so cool. Like it was I remember. These guys were riding, and one splintered the crap out of his joust, out of his lance, and it was just like, dude, the noise from it and the crowd, yeah, it was great. And of course, I'm such a, I don't know, I don't know what kind of personality you call it, but I am the type of person that when I see people doing that, I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that. Get me on a freaking horse. Let's go. That looks like fun. It does. Like I would too, man. I would absolutely. If I could take like some time off to just go do something completely frivolous and stupid just for the hell of it, I would totally go do that. You know, it's like yeah, oh yeah, you could totally get hurt ridiculously badly doing this, but God, I mean, how many people get to say they've jousted? You know, wouldn't that be cool? Would that not just be cool? Doesn't even matter if you lose horrifically. It's like, I don't care if I lost. I still got up there and did it. It's more than you've done, you know. It's something about that so cool. And watching those things hit and split. Oh, yeah, dude. I can't believe you've never been to one, man. Is it not like, oh, they're so cool. They're so cool. I love Renfest. Love them, love them, love them. Love the music. Love the atmosphere. The jousting, all that stuff. Love the food. Love the food. I don't care if it's real or not. I don't care where they got it from. I go to Renfest. It's like, give me one of those giant turkey legs right now. Those big old fried turkey legs.
Dude, if you'd seen the line, you'd have been like, "Screw that! I'm going to Hokkaido,"
Ugh.
because that's exactly what I did. So they had the place you get the turkey legs, right there as you're going out, and I'm like, no lie, 80 people in the line, and I'm like, unless y'all gonna be like throwing those out, yeah, no, I'm not waiting for that. They look
Yeah.
good too.
Yeah. No. Well, usually if I'm going to go to a Renfest, I'm going to be there like I'm probably going to be there an hour early so I can actually get in, and like I will go straight to that and just go ahead and get my turkey leg and get out of the way.
I just don't feel like I can overstate the crowd, dude. Like maybe 2 acres, 30 or 40 minutes waiting in the car to get into the place. Then it's like about a mile walk to it. Then once you get there, it's like I said, about 2 acres. There's easily 500,000 people there. And my buddy that saw my footage said, "Oh, looks like you had about half the crowd we had last week."
Those things draw the most enormous crowds.
Well, it's a special kind of people, you know. It's our people. It's like, you know, like the misfits, the artists, the maybe like outside the norm people, which there's a lot of in North Carolina.
Every time I hear you talk about North Carolina, it's like I do have to come out and visit. I was going to try to come this month, but you know, just lots of things conspired to stop me from it. But I've got to come out and check it out because I just feel like I would have a good time out there, man.
Well, I told you when I was in Moorhead, like I felt like the only difference was like that there's like locally there's a little bit more of the Sharp Peak Mountains, but other than that, like it felt very much like parts of North Carolina for sure, in the mountains of North Carolina. It felt very similar. Like I did not feel like I was out of the South, you know.
Yeah, well, in Moorhead, what's funny is like Moorhead is actually, I don't want to say it's gone downhill, but it's definitely moved to a different side of the hill since I was here 25 years ago. Um, 25 years ago, Moorhead was a way artsier town than it is now. Massively artsier, and it's a strange thing has happened, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much just because it turns people off, and it's just a weird subject. But I will say, like Moorhead, Kentucky, 25 years ago was politically more conservative, and yet was a much more freewheeling artsy town. Nowadays, it's politically super liberal.
I picked up on that.
And it's politically super liberal, and it's nowhere near as free thinking and artsy as it was 25 years ago. Nowhere near it, not even close.
Ironic, isn't it?
It's. I mean, there is a. It's really,
Yeah,
really.
you know, like I when I was there with you at the bookstore, I picked up on that. But like, you know, I will say this: nobody called me a racist or a fascist.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome. When that can, you know, when we can just keep it civil, I can
Mhm.
get along with I can get along with anybody, dude. Anybody. Until you call me a racist or a fascist or a Nazi, and at that point, you know, you're gonna have to hear back from me.
Yeah,
You know, so they weren't like in your face like some of the
yeah.
folks on that side of the aisle are around here. Like Charlotte is a super okay. Well, like we've had this discussion about what is a liberal versus like an extreme liberal or like extreme left or what have you. Like I don't have any problem with like change or, you know, like questioning the government and things of that nature. But when you get down to like where you hate every cop and just anything that is fact you want to say is not fact, then I have an issue, you know. And even then, I'm going to be polite, you know.
And my whole attitude, you've known me long enough to know, is that I am I've literally been many times in my life an actual factual card carrying libertarian, like actual libertarian party. Actually did stuff for libertarians in Indianapolis a
I
long
know
time ago.
you're riding around all pissed off because you're like, I shouldn't have had to pay for this road.
I'm serious libertarian, um, which is kind of a funny place to land because I'm oftentimes just basically the wonderful thing about being a libertarian is it is like if you truly believe it, then you have every right in the world to be pissed off at both sides of the supposed political aisle. and,
Hey,
and,
back
and,
to
and I and I tend to be most of the time. And point being, back to Moorhead, and the town here, like it really is a place that it's not as freewheeling as it used to be, but in its favor, um, I get along with everybody here, and it's really neat. It's like inside the town, you have very left leaning political views, and outside the town, you have very right leaning political
and
views.
what was the name? What was the
And
name
I
of
get
that?
along with everybody in both of them pretty well. So
What was the name of that bookstore?
oh,
The big
it
theater.
was Coffee Tree Books and the Fuzzy Duck Cafe. They
Definitely, definitely one of the coolest bookstore shops I've been in. And if I were there today, do you know what book I would look for?
mm,
Nine Arts of the Ninja,
Nine Arts of the Ninja. Ah ah.
featuring many pictures of Lucinda Dickey and Shokasugi.
Oh my God! Yes, 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 yes. Oh, such fun stuff. Ah. Well, I'm going to kill Manga Studio since since you have
Ah!
since you have hopped back on your Segway and driven it right back to Ninja Town.
Beep beep.
Beep 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 beep. So that is we were going to talk a little bit about a little project that I'm starting up. That's a Sixus1 Disciple 3D
Can you
Dealio Yo.
minimize? Can you minimize the little dorky
Oh,
icon picture? Thank you.
yeah, yeah.
Look
Okay.
like a schmuck.
So yeah, we're so to the subject of ninja.
Talking about our mutual love of the classic Shokasugi ninja aesthetic,
Yes.
which unfortunately with all, I mean, there's some cool ninja outfits out there, not so much for G8, but you know, various platform figures. The problem is folks have taken a lot, well, at least for me, the problem is folks have taken a lot of a liberty with the basic design and gotten super creative. That's all good and fine. But when I want to make like a Shokasugi type fan piece of art, I'm not looking for the frilly frills. I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking for the tabby, the you know, the gauntlets that, you know, close the sleeves and the ankles. I'm looking for that two-piece hood. There's just certain pieces of that basic outline and shape. You know, even Shokasugi himself departed from that at a certain point with, like, you know, his ninja and the master and pray
Yeah.
for death and stuff like that. But like that basic Revenge of the Ninja look. Actually, you just pulled it up right there. That awesome poster which hung on my bedroom wall, with the claw. If you go down to the one in the middle of the
Oh, I
page,
know the one you're talking about.
it has
He's got the
claws.
sword straight up and down and the claw held
Yes.
in front of
And
him. Yeah. Oh
read
yeah.
read the little motto on that, because I used to love that motto, Galactic Eyes. I thought, dang, he's got galactic eyes, bro.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I had that same
View
poster.
Beyond or something like that. Yeah, that was a classic.
Yep. That is. It's like every time I think of the ninja aesthetic, that's what I think of.
You can
Period.
tell the reprints because the original ones did not have the white borders.
Yeah.
FYI.
Yep. No, I ordered my copy of that out of there was Ninja Magazine and Black Belt Magazine. I think I ordered it out of Black Belt,
I got mine from Black Belt.
and I used to order stuff all the time from Asian World of Martial Arts because you could fake your age and they'd send it to you anyway, you know.
Yep.
And yeah, oh yeah, that's like that was a lot of that stuff was that and Bruce Lee is what got me into martial arts back then, and of course now martial arts is a huge part of my life, probably always will be now, and I would bet, God, I wish I still had this. Like, I won. I think the first time I won an art competition, I was probably 9 or 10. It was like grade school, and I did Of course, nowadays they wouldn't let you do this. They'd be like, "Oh my god, that's so violent!" But I did artwork of Shokasugi. Like I did a drawing that I entered into one thing that was a drawing of this particular iconic
Oh
shot
yeah.
with him. What is that? Oh, something Yokogiri. I forgot the word for flying. Flying Yokogiri.
Leadership. I did a commercial with that the same exact inspiration for a martial arts school in Charlotte called Leadership Martial Arts. Really cool place because they don't just do one kind of martial arts. They sort of teach everything. The Eskrima sticks, the basic karate, the jiu-jitsu, and all this. But basically, the instructor's this really lithe, fit dude, and I set up a situation where the students he runs and appears to do this. He's got a student sitting on another student's shoulders, right, holding the board up like at 9-10 foot level, and 6 feet back we have like a student sort of like hands and knees over another student, to create a platform for him to step on. I shoot it from a tripod. He runs and takes a step on them, leaps into the air, does this exact pose perfectly, breaks that board. The guy has some skills. His name's Derek Thundercat Richardson, really good. But anyway, nails it, nails that shot. And so we do some various shots of the kids breaking boards and stuff. And up to this shot, he runs, he jumps, and in Premiere Pro, I mask out the students that are on the ground and replace it with a plate, so it looks like he's taking a step in the air and leaping like 10 foot in the air, cracking this board. People lost their minds. And I had my buddy Donnie Christensen do a classical score with violin, so it's like up to the point he hits that board. Man, I was like,
wait a minute, Donnie Christensen, isn't he in the 3D stuff too, or used to be?
He used to be.
Okay, I see his posts sometimes with like his guitars. Like he's got a Charvel that he adores.
Oh yeah, he actually played on one of my records. But yeah, he was actually the guy that introduced me to Poser. True story.
I always wanted to do some music stuff with him, and we just never connected on it. Huh.
He is really like, he's an old school like 80s like kind of Malmsteen influenced player.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the dude is never at want for an opportunity to play in a band, as far as I can tell. And so like there'll be long periods of time when like I don't even hear from him, and then I look and he's playing in some serious band, and he's done the touring band thing and all that. So I know he moved from Charlotte to Memphis, maybe for a job, I'm not sure. But at that point I think he pretty much like closed up. He used to have like a Poser related sound effects and music type deal on Minerosity, and I liked all his stuff, and yeah, he just up and closed it.
Yeah, I remember him. I remember him back in the day.
I don't think his visual like animated movie ever got completed.
Yeah.
But I know like he used common actors and stuff for the voice acting that I work with. So
that's cool. That's actually really cool.
I like Donnie. He's a cool cat, man.
Well, so we've talked about this off and on for a long time, and I'm going to be producing something that's kind of a very I guess you could call it traditional, because there really is actually no such thing as a traditional ninja. I mean that's kind of a thing, like the look and all that stuff. Really, so much of that the imagery and all that stuff is so heavily influenced by these Shokasugi movies that like people think, oh, that's what ninja look like. But actually, the whole idea of the ninja, they were really just guerrilla fighters and mercenaries and that kind of stuff, who basically used tactics that were the opposite of the formalized warfare of the samurai. So would they dress up in all black and move around in the shadows and stuff? Sure. They also used all kinds of disguises, and there was never a formalized thing of that until probably, I want to say, Masaka Hatsumi came along and sort of turned it into, I think they call it Bujinkan, something like that. But you got Hatsumi and you got Stephen K. Hayes and stuff like that. So there's kind of a modern build of it. I mean, it is what it is. It's like, but the iconic ninja coming from specifically Shokasugi, like Shokasugi defined it, or whoever created that look with him. all that kind
Whew,
of stuff. Yeah, I mean
that
that.
was strong. That was strong, man. That inspired like literally a million boys in the West to go take martial arts, no
Oh
doubt.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Shokasugi. Good lord. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and this is just my opinion, but in terms of presence in martial arts and being able to create an image that made martial arts intriguing to people, I think you have Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris. For me, it's there's Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, um, Sho Kosugi, and maybe what was that Billy Jack.
I would put Jim Kelly above Billy Jack, but apart from
Yeah,
that,
Jim Kelly. Thank you. I knew there was one that I was missing because Jim Kelly was. Oh yeah,
well, he was like that. He basically created black exploitation with his scenes with Bruce Lee. He was so slick. Actually, my buddy interviewed him not long before he passed away.
wow.
He was awesome.
Yeah, I good lord. But yeah, it's like that handful of dudes, and for me personally, the number one like my favorite of all those was always Shokasugi. There's just something about the guy's presence that was Shokasugi and Bruce Lee were my two. You know,
Well, man, I mean, for me, I agree with you. I can nail it down to this. It's like, in general, and this is what separates the, like the Shokasugi films from, say, those Filipino ninja films, which just look stupid, is that he had a certain amount of verisimilitude. Like, you just believed it. You just believed it with him,
yeah,
and you did not believe it with all these multicolored pink ninjas riding motorcycles with submachine guns.
yeah, yeah, yeah. With like Shokasugi, there is absolute suspension of disbelief, complete. And like oh my god like this image right here from Revenge of the Ninja with his little boy Kane. I mean just like everything about that image right there. I just love that. Like I would print that as a large poster and hang it like right here in my
I have
studio.
seen little guys. I've seen little guys and girls about that size doing the sword forms at various karate tournaments, and they always clean up, man. I mean, it's such a theatrical thing, like hitting the back of the blade to shake the invisible blood off and stuff like that. I loved it, absolutely
Yeah.
loved it. I never trained in any of the sword stuff, but I tried to emulate it, like with my own little cheap swords and stuff I had bought in my home movies and whatnot. But yeah, a lot of enjoyment came from that.
The thing that was really cool, the thing that I took from all that or where I went with it was like I remember because of these, I thought it was just so interesting, and I collected books on the subject back then. And so, like 11, 12 years old, I was learning in these books, reading, basically figuring out, okay, this is what's on a screen, and this is what's real. This is the real stuff, and I became very interested in the real stuff. And so, like years later, when I met Sensei Dwight Holly, who I consider him my karate father. You've heard me talk about him endlessly. Like he teaches some Iaido. He teaches primarily Shotokan, but then there's Goju-Ryu, a lot of Kabuto. He's who I got my Shotokan and Kabuto ranks and all that stuff are from him, and I'll be his student till the day I die. But he also teaches some Iaido, and I've gotten to do some of that with him. And oh man, it's so cool. And so learning, kind of real traditional Japanese and Okinawan stuff, and looking back at these, like when I look back at stuff, like there are moments with Shokasugi where there's a level of authenticity in how he holds certain weapons, how his stances. There's like just a level of authenticity there. Like that dude cared about what he was portraying, and that is just too cool to me. I will always love that. Like after I get finished with work today, I actually have a class tonight. I got two dudes who come over and I'm teaching them Shotokan, and then after that tonight, after I get my initial Disney Plus fix over with because The Mandalorian comes on tonight. Oh my God, thank you. But I'm probably going.
What? The Mandalorian comes out tonight?
Yeah, Mandalorian baby.
Let me look that up right now.
Oh yes.
That is the first. It's on TV or what?
It's on Disney Plus. You have to be a subscriber. That's Disney's new streaming service.
Oh, you do have to be a subscriber. We'll see
Mm-hmm.
about that. We'll see about that, my good man.
Oh no, it's subscription only. So yeah, there's that. I had mine bought a while ago because I
So,
with all the Star Wars content coming, I'm like
uh,
the Mandalorian baby. Oh
so
yeah. But
hey,
anyway, yeah.
quick side note, and I don't want to like derail the train here because it seems like it's easy to do that. But have you watched any of the Batwoman?
Oh no, no,
Okay.
no. I like the comic. I like the comic too much to watch the TV show. I watched the trailer for the TV show and I was like, nope. I
My
like.
my my buddy absolutely flayed the whole thing on his little indie review show where he talks about like certain aspects of the entertainment industry. Oh my God, it's super funny. I have to turn you on to that. But
Yeah.
anywho, suffice to say, we really like Shokasugi and we
Oh
like
yeah.
ninjas.
Yeah. So yeah, Sho Kasugi, his ninja stuff from the '80s, just really good. So yeah, I could go down a rabbit hole forever with Ninja Jump, man. Just totally. But so anyway, back to the 3D and producing the stuff. So I was actually, we were talking about it a little bit. I don't have long before we have to kill it. I'm trying to keep these streams down to 2 hours, just so that I can still have some of my data, get some really real work done in. But I thought while we're on here yapping about this, I might throw out a G8 male, send him to ZBrush, and start riffing around on some ninja goodness. So here we go. I'm going to toss this guy over into ZBrush, as my non-American friends would call it, and start, like I said, kind of riffing around on this. Now, my understanding of the outfit from the iconic Shokasugi thing. These red ones, I don't really care for the red color, but the red color and the white does give you a good view of it. I really like that. I liked the white ninja outfit from Enter the Ninja in '81. That's really cool. Always liked that. But the white and the red do give you a better view of it. And here you can see the outfit is really just essentially a gi, or you want to get super picky about it, keiko gi, training outfit, keiko gi, with the sleeves tied down, and these gauntlets pulled up over where they're tied. Here he's got these weird splits in it, but I don't know that I necessarily include those. I do like it with that stuff tied off around the wrist, like you see on Show's stuff. Like right here, you can see his Show's shirt. The uban comes around and goes all the way down to the wrist. And sometimes you would see him actually in layers. Like this right here, you have there's a shirt under there, and then the jacket comes over it and ties off. So I'm thinking what I'll end up doing with this is probably doing it in the 2 layers, where we're going to have, let's subdivide this guy a couple times, and also I like to change it over to a matte cap gray. So I'm going to mask off some of this for building the underlying shirt. Let's change this to a lasso. Of course, I have symmetry turned on. So there we go, there's that. And then pretty sure this undershirt here is going to need to go down a little bit. I'm not real fond of stuff going under the pants if it doesn't have to, but they're going to have to overlap a little bit. So I'm going to take that down to there. And let's hold Alt key and click a couple times so that we harden up that that mask. Okay, and then from there I'm going to go into my subtool, go down to extract. I'm setting my smoothing to 0 and thickness to 0 because I just want a single layer of polys. Won't even look like anything really has happened. Is it not allowing me to do that anymore? There was an update to ZBrush recently. There we go. Oh, my bad. I was having a brain fart there. Let's go back. Set this to 0. So hit extract and then accept. So now I should have a, there we go. Yeah, single layer of polys extracted from that. And then I'm going to polish those edges a bit. And let's go in here now, and I don't want to inflate that a whole lot, and usually I would inflate holding the control key with my my 3D Gizmo, but this time I'm going to go old school on it, go into my deformations and inflate by like 0.1 a couple times, just so that it comes out a little bit. And then from there, let's geometry, modify topology, and I'm going to, where do I want to go here? Where do I want to go? Let's, yeah, let's close these holes, and then I'll hide those, and I hit Control E a few times so that it creates some smooth edge rings around the outer edge. And then I'm going to delete hidden, and having that smooth edge created is going to make this retopo a little better. Then I'm also going to turn off my symmetry, and let's go to my slice curve, and I'm going to slice right down through the armpit area like that, and then mirror and weld, and then let's show this, and I'm going to drag a slice curve down through there. Then I'm going to Z-remesh this. Even though I'm retopologizing this, the topology that's created from this is not by any means remotely finished. I just want to take this, kind of use this to get some organization, get some mesh started, and then I'm going to retopo this with keep groups turned on and get this down to a more manageable poly count. We'll give that a second. And it may completely freak out on it. Sometimes when you have keep groups turned on, it gets a little weird. It's going, come on. Pardon me. So there we've got some topology slung from that, and it looks like I had a group there for some reason that I don't want. Oh yeah, let's get rid of that. So I'll just delete that. That's why it was hanging on that. So let's try this again. Should go much quicker now. It had this tiny little sliver group around the collar area, around the neck area there, that freaked it out a little bit. What? Okay, cool. So that's much better. It's not perfect, but I'm not really expecting perfect at this stage. What I want is something that I can just work with a little more easily. So here I'm going to inflate that just a little bit. Should come out over top of the figure. I'm going to turn those lines off but keep these colors on. Then from here, to kind of work up some of the cloth shape and really get it kind of sculpted a bit, I'm a big fan of using the sculptress mode. And if I turn these lines back on, you'll see sculptress mode what that does, it's going to add resolution in. So with the wireframe on, you can't really tell a whole lot about it. It just looks like it's creating junk, really. But what that's going to do is allow me to just brush over, adding resolution and sort of sculpting more fluidly. And it's targeted, so it's not quite like using the Dynamesh. So let's turn on some symmetry here. And I don't want to over sculpt because this is just an undershirt anyway. So, and if I just hold the shift key and smooth over it, let's see what we get. You'll see that it tries to, it creates something that has a kind of a smooth appearance, but it's also, it's decimating it as it goes. So, and I really just want to get a little bit more shape into the model here as I kind of push into this. Probably gonna remesh this a few times as I'm going to. So it's just.
Hey Les, could you address why it's okay to create your own product, like starting with the shape of the actual figure, retopology and whatnot, being your own actual geometry once you do some of those things?
Well, legally speaking, you can't redistribute. Like, you can't just cut off parts of that figure and redistribute it. That's not allowed. But what you can do is use this method. Like, I'm not the end model won't have any of the topology of that underlying figure. DAS, by their licensing, if you're going to make clothing or whatever for it, they allow for the shape. They allow for this particular type of use for it. They almost have to, just by virtue of their own business model. So that's its own thing. Without getting too deep into legalese about it, yeah, that is kind of what that is. But as far as technically, it's like you could just trace over it. I mean, you could trace a topology out there and all that, but with modern retopology tools, it's like I'm about to do a retopology here with Z-Remesh, and so at that point, it's not the underlying mesh anymore at all. It's a completely different topology. So, and that's there's no. Yeah, I mean, it's the discussion of that genie left the bottle a long time ago. So I don't really know where to take it beyond that, honestly, dude. It's just that's just how stuff's made now.
So basically, this type of use is just something that they're going to ultimately profit from, and they're not likely to. And in fact, have already that sort of has been decided in the past as far as using the shape, right?
Yeah, there's no. Well, it's like if I were to take the figure, I just retopologize the figure and go, hey, here's my human male. No, you can't do that. If that shape is exactly their shape and they can drop them in and look at them over top of it, no, you can't do that. And if they think for one instance that you have done that, they're going to come after you. You're going to run into all kinds of trouble. And kind of rightly so, but if you're making clothes, you're not making a human figure. You're not making something that's a competing product. You're making something that's a supporting product. And that alone presents, I think, business-wise for them, I think that's the big difference, is that you're not making a competing product. You're making a supporting product. Like even a product supporting this figure that sits at a different store than theirs is still adding value to their figure. And I think that's how they take it. I don't know. I really don't know. I know that I do a lot of stuff for DAS these days, like stuff that I sell to them, and like I'm listed as a what is it? I don't know if it's a contract artist or
PA,
well,
published artist.
well, I'm a published artist, but there's lots of published artists who don't necessarily do like buyouts or contract stuff. There's a different term that they use for that. I don't even remember what it is. Like I just don't even think about it anymore. But yeah, it's kind of a non-issue, you know. As long as you're not distributing something that competes with their figure or actually reuses its mesh in some way without their permission, then yeah, it is what it is.
Are you using the inflate brush, by the way?
Oh yeah, for the moment, yeah, I was just using the inflate brush to bring some stuff out in a few areas. I've also turned off sculptress mode. Sometimes that works out really well for me, and sometimes it doesn't. So I may be about to, I think I am about to remesh this. And so let's close holes. And delete hidden. I'm going to turn that group stuff off in here. And okay. And I probably need to like look up some more references for that underlying shirt and all that kind of stuff, because I want it to be accurate, like really accurate to like not to a specific film version per se, but like it needs to feel like it could sit alongside that sort of stuff. I say that because one, the last thing I need is for anybody going, "Oh, you've stolen, you're doing copyrighted material." And just no, I'm not making a ninja. I'm not making the Shokasugi ninja. I'm making something that is definitely inspired by, but it is not that one.
The term ninja is not copyrighted.
No, the term's not. But like if I create something that is dead on to that, then while that's a discussion that I have to be careful sometimes, and I hate that. I have to be careful how I talk about certain things, because you and I both know that there's folks in various places who get very itchy.
Well, okay, so yeah, I get what you're saying. And obviously, there've been folks that have worked in those same marketplaces that have taken it too far. Have just like point blank copied IP.
Yeah. So
that's not what you're doing. That's not what you've ever done, if you ask me. I mean, I'm even talking about the ones that did create some small issues.
Yeah, it's like every once in a while I've flown a little too close to the sun from time to time with stuff that was, for me, was like fan work that I'm putting out there so other fans can enjoy it and have some fun with it or whatever. And you just have to be careful about that sort of thing, because it's not something that you want to. I really try to stay away from that crap. And sometimes you get folks in various positions who, for whatever reason, decide that they're gonna place you under more scrutiny than they do other folks and that sort of thing. I'm just like, so, is what it is. I really hate that there is that kind of side to this market, that it's even a thing. But it is a thing, and since I pay a lot of my bills with this market, I have to be very conscious of the thing.
Quick question. Are you going to build those like gauntlet hand pieces or as a separate thing, or are you going to put those on the end of these sleeves?
I'm going to do those separate. So like, here's this initial underlying shirt that I think doing it as a pullover is fine. And then, so, and that's why I do want to look up some different ninja outfits and get a clearer picture of like some different ways of interpreting what's underneath. I do know that there are two shirts. Like there's an underlying shirt and there's a jacket that goes over it. I really like the idea of the kind of the fuller sleeved jacket that goes over. I think right here even it's a jacket that goes over and has the fuller sleeves, but they're tied off here. And then there's some times where you'll see this imagery with the sleeves being loose, and I really like that too. Like right there is a good shot of the sleeves being loose. Actually, I think the shirt underneath might have those come all the way down. Yeah, let's do it that way. I think that's a good interpretation of that. So if I take this, I want to get a lower resolution on this first off. There we go.
Well, I was just prattling off with the mute on. Yeah, I think if you like right now, this could be any shirt, right? Like, but if you have those pieces on there, it's specifically a ninja shirt, you know.
Yeah.
It also saves you one asset.
Yeah, it does, and I'll always like that. So let's go in here, and I think the way I want to do this is with my draw topology. So I'm going to do that. Yeah, it gets a little wonky on some of these. There's lots of overlay draws in the software that being on a stream like this can kind of make it get a little weird. So I need to actually slow down how quick I'm drawing the stuff. So there's that. Let's connect this over here, and then connect this over here. Boom, boom, boom.
Are you doing this in symmetry with the other side painting at the same time?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So there's that. And oh, nice. Oh, it's so close. It's so close. Come on. Do you connect? Yes, you connect. Do you connect? Yes, you connect.
Gotta avoid those triangles.
Yep. Triangles are the enemy. So then let's go here. Boom. Boom. No. Dang it. Dang it, Bobby. There we go. That's a little better. Of course, I'll end up manipulating that, but that gets us started on that shape. So I want to go down to 1, so it only creates a single-sided form right there. And then let's pull that out. And then I'm going to kind of manipulate this stuff just a bit. Store a morph target and polish it, and then I can use my morph slider to drag back a little bit toward that, but get some of the... I use that morph slider a lot to sort of dial back in this combination of polish and morph slider so that I can basically smooth something, like relax, average its vertices, and say, okay, let's dial it back that close to what I had. It's kind of a wonky way to use that, but I dig it. Works for me. So then I'm changing my gizmo tool out to the old version for a second because I like the way I can do this kind of localized movements with it and hit the Y key, toggle between those modes. And let's pull that down. And that. And I want this to flow into this sleeve really smoothly. So let's go. We got one. Whoop, come back here. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 polys right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's take my Z modeler. I'm going to set my polygon action to delete single poly. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay. And then let's move topologically. This stuff, we're going to flare that out a bit, pull this in a bit. Then I want to bridge between two edges. And see the reason I'm doing that, see how this now flows smoothly into that ring going around there, and as will that. And then just polish that stuff back. Okay, so that. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's do 5 and 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good, good. So this is like one of the most OCD processes in the world sometimes. There's lots of counting little things like that. You don't have to. I mean, there's sloppy ways. Things that, maybe they're not sloppy, but there are ways to do it that you don't need to count. But I find that if you're always counting those edges and keeping track of that, that you'll model far more cleanly.
You ever find yourself looking at the world going, must not have triangles, must not have triangles?
I'll tell you what I find is when I'm like out walking around in the world, I look at things and can imagine the wireframe over it. I could just absolutely see the topology and everything around me.
I sometimes try to control Z life.
Yeah. It's weird sometimes. It's very, I don't know, it's like, you get this whole, it's like we are living in the Matrix kind of feeling, I mean, you ever listen to anybody talk about simulation theory?
Not really.
It's a...
Other than Jeff Goldblum, was that chaos theory, though?
That was chaos theory. No. Simulation theory is this theory that reality, that we are actually living inside some kind of a simulation. That existence itself is some kind of simulation, and basically whatever it is that someone refers to as God is just whoever created that simulation. It's a trippy idea, but what's crazy about it is how much it makes sense if you're willing to entertain the thought. It's like really weird, really weird. I dig it. I listen to a lot of like kind of crazy philosophical stuff like that, and it's neat. It's a neat concept. And when you're working in 3D every day, as long as I have been, and you just start to see things in this really granular sort of way, where it's like, no, I can see the polygons that make this up. I can see the physics. Like, it's like I can imagine how the physics simulation works for this, and it's like it really becomes this trippy kind of looking at the Matrix code kind of feeling. It's weird. It's a very weird thing. I mean, I've talked before from time to time with folks about like I've always had interests in really oddball stuff anyway. And one of the things that struck me early when I very first started messing with building 3D models in code, because that's how I started building 3D models. My first 3D models were built by programming actual coordinates for vertices to use in a DOS program. And I was fascinated by the idea that here is the infinite expansion of space. Like 3D space is infinite because it's just math. And when you create inside it, you're just using math to make something where there was nothing. And I always loved this very kind of playing God sort of feeling that you got from it. Like there was something about that it struck me as very, not like I am God kind of godlike, but it was like this is a characteristic of what it, like, you know, it's like if God's real, this must be a characteristic of what that feels like to be able to look into infinite space and go, I imagine this, boom, 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 here you go. It reminds me of the quote from there was a, I think I'm probably going to butcher the quote, but it was from Einstein, referred to mathematics as God's blueprint for the universe, and like it's cool, man. It's like you really start to see things in this funky sort of way. The longer you spend building 3D stuff, the more you can walk around in the world and just totally have like an imaginary overlay on everything of the wireframe for how it all works. It's funky, very very trippy, and no, I don't do acid. So there you go. I've been told by many of my more freewheeling friends who are like, dude, you totally need to like try, you know, like acid or psilocybin or DMT or something like that. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. My world's trippy enough to begin with. All right. Well, that's a good starting point for the shirt. I'm gonna leave that alone for a moment so that so I can just kind of rough something else in. Let's
That could almost be like a fashion statement with Gray Bros jeans, you know, like the new and improved Ninja Tee.
ah, that's frightening. So we want the, I don't know if they would call this the, if it's a gi, it's Zubon. If it's a lot of other stuff, it's Hakama. I don't know which they would refer to this as in ninjutsu circles. Alright. Man, I do not like how high resolution I'm making that stuff to work with like that. So let's go down a little bit. Extract, except there we go. That's better. That's much more workable. And we go back into here and just gonna fill in the butt crack. Yeah, Sculptress mode is so stinking handy. It's like, I'm going to go ahead and start building out these billows. And if I make my brush larger, when I smooth it, it'll also decimate that back down to a lower resolution, which is kind of handy right here. So we're just kind of working in the broad strokes of the forms on this. Yeah, man, as soon as I turn those other meshes on, it really slows it down with the stream going. Like, my normal workflow is really fast compared to that. Very strange. I think right now, yeah, it might speed up if I turn, if I'm not working in that Sculptress mode too. So. There's that. Let's go back into sculptures mode for a second and just do a little smoothing over this so that it's not that low res topology there. It'll give me something that I can sculpt on just a little easier. And let's go here. There we go. That's better. And I know that's going to have ties going around it there. There's a couple different ways I'm going to do those eventually. A couple different ways I could do those, rather. It's just a matter of deciding which method I kind of prefer. So right now I'm just kind of building this with some lines to it in the way that it's formed, the way the cloth would pull. So I'm going to do ties at the knees and the ankles. So let's grab these polys and hit Control D so that it subdivides those once. And then I'm going to expand that. Actually, yeah, I'm going to expand that. I think I am going to have, instead of doing, I had thought originally about doing knee-high tabis, but I think I'd rather have them go under the pants just a bit with the ties around the ankles, because I think that's probably a little, yeah, if you look right here, you can see the tabi goes up on the leg, but the pant actually comes down over it too, and I like that. Let's run with that. So then grab that, polish it. So, it's kind of cool actually doing a ninja and some Japanese martial arts based stuff. I don't think I told you, but my son has come back to work with me. I took some time to kind of go out and do some things in life, and I would encourage any kid to do that. And yeah, we recently were talking, and he's been working on his skills on his own and all that stuff, and we decided it's time to get back together and work on some things together again. And there's like a creature that he was showing me that he's worked up that, oh my god, it's so cool. Like I love making creatures, but I will swear all day, every day, that my son is just, he's ridiculously good at it. He comes up with some of the best creature designs I've ever seen. And there was a very Japanese inspired design he was showing me the other day that I don't want to reveal too much about it, but like sitting here doing this ninja, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm totally going to do this ninja, because I'm going to have this ninja fighting this monster that Killian's working on, because that thing is just, it's so cool. I wish I could show it. I can't show it yet, but it is really cool. And it's really cool for me to have him working with me again, because I love working with Killian. Let's get some folds and things going on in here. I mean, it stands to reason that that he's got a crazy imagination for monsters, because my son, he grew up around all this stuff, so he's going to take it wherever somebody who experiences it their whole lives would take it, and that's really neat. It's really neat to see that. Right. Let's take a look. delete by symmetry. Put that all in one group. And I'm going to put a tiny slice right down the middle there. Do a mirror and weld. Now, if let's do it this way. I know this is actually more detail for just a design sculpt than is really needed, but sometimes I like to roll that way. What I want here is, there we go. Not so far. I want to pull that tiny little group there super tight. Right like that. Okay. And then I think, man, that's so laggy. So from there, I'm going to cut group right through here. And then put those together in that group. Now then, I'll come to that group by itself, set my edge looping to crisp. It's probably a little further than I want. It's not quite as far as I want. Okay, that gets me, that's a little too much of a band. There we go. Let's get right there. Then, boom. So there you can see it's starting to get that, I like the crease, the seam in the middle like that. I do like to sometimes get details at that level at the design sculpt. It just kind of makes certain things get easier down the road when I'm pulling together a topology. Let's delete by symmetry now. Let's see if I mirror. Okay, cool. That's good. So now that means I can come back in with my slice curve. I'm going to cut across this knee right here. Okay, there's that. I'm going to cut across this ankle. And let's take this, let's come in here, and where do I want to go? Don't want to do a panel loop on this. Don't want it double-sided. Don't want any thickness added. Let's see. It should give me, there we go. See how that gave me these little groups around it right here. Alright. So now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go.
Is that jarbled menu at the bottom like a bug in the current version of ZBrush?
It's just, I think it's just a display artifacting. Yeah, it's just display goofiness with the stream. That. So then I'm going to make a couple of groups. There we go. There. Alright, so now let's take that and the edge loop a couple times, mask it, polish it. times. And then let's take the damn standard. And let's turn on some of this. Don't want to butcher that too much. Boy, it really does. It really, Sculptress mode really likes to eat that up. Come back here. Everything's getting weird. There we go. Alright, so now I should have enough there that it doesn't butcher that. Okay, good. Good. There's actually a character of mine, character that I play from time to time in this role-playing game with some friends, a non-D&D role-playing game called Spirits of the Century. That I created this character for that game, but I want to adapt it out and someday do a comic of it. It's a guy who is it's like set in the 1920s. Think like pulp stuff, like Spider or the Spider Master of Men. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, dude, you got to look that up. You of all people would really dig it. You ever read any old pulp novels like Doc Savage or?
Yes.
Okay, well, like to my knowledge, possibly the first of those. I mean, like so much in comics, action, all that kind of stuff, right? Like Batman is a ripoff. I love Batman. Don't get me wrong, but Batman, the Shadow, tons of characters were all almost whole cloth ripped from parts of this character called the Spider. You'd see the title of it would be the Spider, Master of Men, and very much the whole playboy, adventurer, vigilante kind of thing, straight out of the Spider. But this game that I play sometimes with some friends, this role-playing game called Spirits of the Century, is set in like the 1920s, I think. At least that's, I don't know if the actual game itself is supposed to be set in that, but that's the era that my friend runs it out of. And there's a character that I created for it who is very much along the lines of that sort of pulp hero. And he's half Japanese, half American. He has of course, this is from like the character is in his like early 20s, and this is borrowing from the craziness of real pulp fiction. I hate it. I hate that the movie Pulp Fiction kind of co-opted that phrase, because it's like you say Pulp Fiction, and be like, oh, Quentin Tarantino. I'm like, no, talking about real damn Pulp Fiction, people. But even though I love that movie, I'm like, ah. But so there's this character that I have who slightly inspired, maybe more than slightly inspired by, like there are 2 Tom Cruise movies that I can watch and not be annoyed by it. And they are Interview with the Vampire and The Last Samurai. I love The Last Samurai.
Oh, I do as well.
That movie is just so good. And so I really liked, I thought when I was making this character for this game, I was like, man, what if that guy, what if that American soldier who's kind of found his redemption through this whole thing, what if he stayed? What if he stayed with and eventually married that woman who was the wife of guy that he killed. And and through the whole thing, that character is wrestling with his own past, and and the violence and warfare and all this stuff. Meanwhile, she's this repository for this kind of this culture of the samurai and all that kind of stuff. So now, what if that guy and her, a few years down the road, after he stays instead of leaves, right? What would their what if they had a son? What would that son grow up to be like? You know, I mean, what like if they a few years down the road had a son, that son would grow up possibly time wise in the early stages of the ramp up of the build up to Japanese imperialism. Then that kid would be half American growing up in Japan at a time when everything's changing, right? And I thought, man, it'd be so cool to take a character like that into this Pulp Fiction setting. There's Pulp Fiction settings, you do all kinds of crazy things, like you get the mad geniuses and the crazy doctors, and it's like all the over the top stuff that's so much fun to play with. And I thought, what if this character grew up like that and had his father has sworn off war? Like, he has come to grips with shit that he did in the past. He's sworn it off, and he is determined to raise his son not to be a killer, but to be a healer. And so he sends him away to England to study medicine and all this kind of stuff. But the boy's mother still wants to preserve this heritage. So this boy has grown up with these two extreme dichotomies. It's like there's this whole you playing with the whole idea, and there's a design that I came up with for the character. It's like and I named the character Aka, and his friends call him Red, because he looks, you can tell he's not completely Caucasian. He's got kind of the Occidental build. He's a little bigger. He's a little more robust in build. But he has, well, I mean, you've got a son. Your wife's Asian, and you guys have a son together, so you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Having like the blending there. I didn't even realize that when I was talking about it. I was like, oh shit, man, he's got a son.
Yeah, he's built a lot like me, actually. A little bit leaner, but he's definitely built a lot like me.
But I mean, like, I've seen pictures of your son. You can tell he's Asian. Or half Asian.
I was at this. I'll tell you what. I was making this little Halloween film for the local club, and it's a Vietnamese girl that owns it. But all the girls that work down there, they're like their mom, and the one girl is sitting there. She's in the little skit. She goes, "Hey, where's that Wasian kid?" I was like, "What?"
Wasian?
White Asian, Wasian.
Oh my god, that's funny. That's so funny. So yeah, this character that I really want to do in a comic, Aka, I don't know what the odds are of this happening, but it's Pulp Fiction, so you have fun with things. And I thought, wouldn't it be really cool if he goes by Aka, goes by Red, because his face definitely shows his Asian heritage, but his beard grows in red, like Irish red. I thought that would be so cool looking. And
you're Scots Korean. You don't make a wee bit of sense.
But and then I should share some sketches of him sometimes, because I've got a pile of drawings I've done. So moving way forward, the character eventually becomes this in the character's backstory, he's sent to England. He's grown up he's obviously, it's Pulp Fiction, so he has these ridiculous fighting skills. He's grown up learning that from his mother's side. His father's pushed him into studies and all this kind of stuff. So he ends up with this kind of Batman sort of thing to him, where he's very smart, very cagey and all this stuff, but also has all these skills. Goes off to England to med school to fulfill his father's wishes and all that stuff, and experiences some pretty serious racial angst that he goes through when he gets there, because there's some stuff that would happen around that time that would be difficult. And he ends up though finding a mentor. Um, and I've got a bunch of notes written on this. They're super detailed. It's just too much to go into right now. But he ends up finding a mentor in the form of one Dr. Henry Jekyll. And like basically the reason Henry Jekyll mentors this kid is that like Jekyll has the thing that gets this kid. There's like all this kind of old holistic healing kind of traditionalist, you know, Eastern stuff that the kid does know from his upbringing. And like he had written a sort of thesis kind of thing. That's what got him in the door at you know, this medical school in England. And it was all on, you know, these there's aspects of this Eastern healing that he put in this that end up being what Jekyll looks to as a, and is able to tap to cure himself of the illness that he's put on himself that turns him into Mr. Hyde. Okay. And so when you know it like he's on the review board that read that paper, it sparks something. You can see where that kind of thing goes. It's fun, you know.
Yep.
And then he, you know, he makes sure, yes, we definitely want this guy coming here. And other people are wishy-washy or kind of crappy to the kid, but Jekyll takes him under his wing. And like the first story of this character would be that I had this idea that basically somebody wants to use, and this is a little League Extraordinary Gentleman in a way, but not really. You know, like there's the Jekyll serum that somebody has found out about and wants to use for whatever nefarious purpose they want to use it for, and they kill Jekyll to get it, leaving Akka basically leaving Red as the guy running Jekyll's lab. And you know, and he, you know, like he feels this guy gave him a chance. He feels honor bound to avenge him. And I think it's a great setup for a story. I think it's a great setup for a fun pulp action story that, you know, can incorporate just a bazillion different super cool things. So it's funny because like just working on this, I'm like, oh man, I was like, there's so many different things in this that, yeah, anytime I get into working on like Japanese related stuff anymore, I remind myself of that character. I'm like, man, I've got to do something with that character one day. So anyway, completely unintended thing to get into, but so I'm really digging the design on those pants. I think that's, although I don't know, the way that I have those creases going right here, the stretch creasing is a bit too vertical, so maybe I'll hammer that out a little bit. Let's just go ahead and set that to add. This is like my favorite way to do fold sculpting. Just take the damn standard brush, set it to add, and then start doing these compression folds.
That looks cool.
Compression folds are such a weird thing to sculpt. They seem random, but they're not. There's a method to it. Now, something like this, where I'm actually putting a fair amount of detail into the design sculpt, I will keep that sculpt. I'll keep a copy of that in a subtool, so that after I have a topologized version, because when you do the topology, it's going to lose quite a bit of the details that are there. But then I'll go back through and project the details back in from my original sculpt. I'm always struck by how, like, if you have high volume or high, like, very noisy compression folds like this, it starts to remind me of water. There we go. That's better. Yeah, that's much better. All right. Let's go back upstream here, and let's put some little booties on him.
It is your duty to sculpt the booty.
Ah, that's horrible. Don't quit your day job. Or do quit your day job. I don't care. I'm not going to tell somebody what to do.
Dude, at the Renfest, there was this thing called Vegetable Justice, and it was a comedian in like a like a circle with his head and stuff, and so they have it kind of rigged where it's really hard to hit him. They give you the impression it's like 5 throws for $5. They give you the impression you're going to get a tomato or an orange, something nice and spherical, and then they give you like a slice of it or some shit. But anyway, he would just basically attack the physical appearance of of whoever's throwing it, right? So this really good looking, I don't know what she's like, Latin woman or whatever, she comes up there, she's got a incredible rack, white t-shirt, low cut, and she steps up, he's like, ma'am, want to guess what I'm looking at? And he just starts going in on the breast implant. He's like, anything that beautiful is too nice to be perfect, and just, oh, it was brutal, man.
That's
And
horrible.
the whole crowd is just laughing their ass. It's like invariably the people that were getting insulted after they, of course, couldn't hit him, they would just walk off with their head down. It was so funny. Well, a couple of girls, he said they were like 2/3 of the Golden Girls because they had bleach blonde hair and stuff, and it was really funny.
All right. So, as a caveat to whatever listeners we may or may not have, I in fact do not encourage the use of the term rack. I can't believe you said that on here.
I keep my guitars on a rack. What are you talking about?
I can't believe you said that. I mean, I can because I know you.
I put my shovels on a rack, and a rack's a country, dude. A rack deserves your respect.
Oh, you're so horrible.
Okay, let me rephrase. He indicated that he believed her to be in a position of augmented breastises. How about
horrible.
that? Is that triggering anybody?
Oh crap! Oh shit! That's funny. It's too good. It's too good. So I need to separate these toes.
Now I'm curious about this because it's almost like you need to repose the toe. You know what I mean? Like to actually, are you just going to kind of guesstimate it like as if the toe were replaced? I mean, reposed or whatever.
I've got some trickery I'm about to pull. So that I'm going to retopo this real quick with that split cut out. So let's do half. Don't even care hardly what it comes out looking like there. I just want that. Let's do this. Don't even care that it's crappy topology there right now either. I won't. Is grab that, bridge those together, and then I'm gonna close convex hole, close that hole, close that hole. All right. And let's close this hole up here. Ooh. Let's do it this way. Let's just delete that much of that. And then we're going to fresh topo. Now, I can tell you in the end, when these boots apply on the figure, they'll automatically hide the feet underneath, because I just don't even want to have to mess with that. But,
Makes sense.
yeah, it still needs to be modeled up right.
I gotta take care of something. I'll be right back shortly.
Well, I'm probably going to close this up here soon, because it's almost 1 o'clock. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to close her up soon. I'm going to see if I can't get a good stopping point going on our booties here, on our tubby. But, yeah, this is a good... it's working out pretty well.
Looking good.
So I'm going to see if I can take that down by half and have it not completely, be a turd.
Man, it's rainy outside today, and I still gotta find a way to walk 8,000 steps. Yo.
You can do it. You got this.
Yeah. Probably gonna have to go walk inside the commons, the county commons, or something like that. Got my headphones.
Yeah, do it outside.
Well, it's getting pretty chilly, man.
I
probably could if the actual rain stops, but right now it's still raining.
Yeah. Some days I won't, but a lot of times, man, I'll go ahead and take dogs out and go in the rain. But I don't know. I get kind of crazy like that there.
I mean, my house is like 7 miles away. I've got a treadmill, but I don't enjoy the treadmill like actually walking.
Yeah. I kind of dig walking out in the elements. I know it's crazy, and some days I don't, but a lot of times, like this morning, I was out walking the dogs. We did a couple miles in the snow, and I really enjoyed it. It's I don't know, just something about it just feels. It's goofy sounding. I don't know. I feel alive out in that. Just really feels like I'm actually doing something instead of just walking down the street in my little neighborhood. It's like, man, it feels good. And the dogs dig it. Dogs are like, hey boss, what are we doing? We're going outside? We're gonna go outside? Yeah, we're going outside. It's snowing! It's like the dogs are like sticking their noses in it. And it's so cool. I love having dogs that can play in the snow,
How's old Heisenberg doing?
Oh,
Still as distrustful as ever.
oh yeah, that's him. He's like, I'm watching you. I'm watching all of you. You know, he's just that's how that dog is, man. He is man. I swear he's like trying to prove how much Shepherd is in him. I really kind of feel like that. I feel like, you know, like he probably has some kind of a weird complex. He's like, I'm not husky, I'm shepherd. You know, it's like, damn it, guys, I'm a shepherd. I'm doing my job. I love that damn dog. Oh crap! So this should be able to get a good topology out of this now, and I'll flatten this up a little bit. Pull that down, polish it, and let's pull it down further. I guess I could project that up to the toes a little bit, but I don't want to go that far with that crap. That is getting there. That is very much getting there.
Yes, it is.
Let's do let's see, keep groups. Let's see what we get here. See if that holds up. Man, I don't like that every time I try to retopo it, it gets goofy with the toe slit area. Don't like that at all. That bothers me. But it has to be retopoed. Let's try adaptive. Now, see, every time it wants to relax this split here forward. Let's see. I'm just not happy about that. Not feeling that. Like the shape's good, but that little bit there, I'm probably going to have to manually build that area, and I'm not looking forward to that. Not even a little bit. Let's see if I can kind of adjust it a bit, and then, oh, that would have been a good way to go. That seems to have worked out pretty well. All right. Well, folks, we've obviously gotten down to the part of things where I start to work on something and go kind of quiet, and I'm gonna call it on this. We actually went over the time that I had set aside for it, but that's okay. It's not a bad thing.
We got down to the nitty of the gritty.
Yep. So let's hide these, brush up through this stuff a little bit. So, I'm trying to think. Anything I want to recap? Obviously, just remind you guys, if anybody is stuck around or if you're just joining us, go to your local comic shop and tell them this month in Diamond's previews there is Apocalypse Girl, and they need to carry it, and you want it in your pull file, and there it is. So there's that, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the only thing. You know, of course, I'll probably still be mentioning it all the time, right up until the show in New Orleans, but we're going to be in New Orleans with Source Point Press come January, first week of January, for a show there and some special stuff going on with that. Yep, that's pretty much it. So I guess we're gonna sign off. I hope you folks enjoyed this week, and you know, come back next Tuesday or watch it whenever you can. So you know, you'll see me on here just slinging art, talking, you know, comics, 3D, and all the crazy junk that I'm into. So until next time, I'm Les L. Garner,
I'm
Sixus1.
Brent, aka Disciple 3D, aka the Master Disaster, aka Graybro.
Johnny Brento. Anyway,
I forgot that one.
Johnny Brento. So yeah, it's kind of cool. We had a couple more people joining in the chat this week. That's kind of nice. So I'll see you folks around. Yeah, till next time. Stay cool, folks. And